This video is brought to you by Captain.
Oh, Backfisch!
Meine Backfischstäbchen. 100% Fischfilet. Mit einem so knusprigen Backteig, da kann keiner widerstehen. Captain Iglos Backfischstäbchen. Jetzt probieren.
Moving on, our main story today deals with social issues, specifically self-help. But we will not talk about the best full body workout to burn fat, or the magic weight loss shakes your colleague keeps talking about. We are going to talk about the original self-help movement and how it differed to today's self-help industry. But what is self-help? The Merriam-Webster dictionary defines self-help as the action or process of bettering oneself or overcoming one's problems without the aid of others. Another term that is commonly used is self-improvement, which is defined as the improvement of one's knowledge, status, or character by one's own efforts. These are the points that are specifically targeted by the self-help industry. Each book that is sold promises to improve the reader in at least one of these categories simply by doing what the author says. And it works. Last year alone, the self-help industry made over $1 billion in profit through books, seminars, and other merchandise. But this has not always been the case. Back in the day, when the Victorian ideals of crafting an upstanding character based on public propriety, stern morality, and a supreme work ethic were at the forefront of every citizen, the movement started. The self-help movement has deeply working-class roots. Self-help meant blue-collar workers collectively helping one another. People tried to learn useful skills to help their community and fellow working men. During the same time, the British tried to banish illiteracy and open schools and so-called mechanics institutes. The problem was that these schools were often sponsored by middle-class members who tried to impose their own values and beliefs on other people. But the workers seemed to be dissatisfied with these institutionalized formal education because, among other things, they were not allowed to discuss politics and religion. As a result, mutual improvement societies emerged in many industrial towns and cities in England as an alternative education option. They were the working man's solution to his own educational needs. The mutual improvement societies were groups of working-class folks who met to learn reading, writing, and arithmetic to improve their own conditions. Enter Samuel Smiles. He was a Scottish author and an editor for a radical newspaper, and apparently a long-lost relative of Captain Igloo. Samuel Smiles visited a lot of mutual improvement societies since 1845 and was impressed with their admirable self-helping spirits. He gave inspirational lectures on successful men who have risen up the ranks of society. Each lecture later became a chapter in his book Self-Help from 1859. His book gave an official name to the growing movement of self-improvement. Smiles took the collective self-advancing ideology and broke it down to individual work ethic. Here the working class roots seem to have merged with the middle class values of individuals. Smiles was not a fan of the institutional support because he saw it as a great demotivator, while he saw poverty as a great motivational tool. He believed that anyone can improve themselves without the help of the government, which implied that working-class members who remained poor and ignorant were morally deficient, which is a fancy word for lazy. Self-help went from a collective idea of a better world to essentially an ideology of personal betterment spurred by individual ambition. But Smiles cautioned about the mistaken belief that the simple exposure to culture was sufficient for its mastery. According to him, the possession of the mere materials of knowledge is something very different from wisdom and understanding, which are reached through a higher kind of discipline than that of reading. And, indeed, to transform thought into action required interaction with others. It moved improvement from a very private to a very public venture because the active nature of self-improvement demanded the vigorous involvement of peers in debate, discussion, and mutual development of ideas. This process culminated in the belief that public virtues are strengthened by knowledge, and as knowledge increases, so we come nearer to the time when every man will be a true citizen of a great, a free, and a prosperous state. Self-improvement meant active participation in civic society, elaborating the centrality of informed debate to mid-Victorian public life, which demonstrated moral worth. So self-improvement became a primary marker of a new model of popular citizenship. There were two categories of self-improvers. On the one hand, we have the heroic autodidact struggling alone in the pursuit of knowledge. And on the other hand, we have the aforementioned mutual improvement societies that were cobbled together by young men devoted to the corporate model of self-help. Self-improvement was available to thousands whose aspirations towards culture transcended class lines. The ideal of self-improvement united individuals into what is called a self-improving caste, and for many self-improvers it became the most important characteristic of their lives. Consequently, a specific model of corporate identity was formed that started to replace class in two ways. First, it emphasized common bonds among improvers while minimizing superficial differences. The public participation enhanced the social status of the individual improver while it positioned that individual and his fellows firmly in a broader local and national culture. Second, on the other hand, it articulated a shared mistrust of outsiders. Self-improvers started to express great antipathy towards individuals of their own material and economic class who refused to participate in what had become an extremely persuasive popular conception of Victorian citizenship. In general, self-improvers were seen as the intellectual heroes, and the mere desire for mental culture was a sufficient foundation for the heroic achievement. It even went so far that self-improvers were compared to Galileo, as one quote of this time shows. Every mind which is yet a stranger to science is like Galileo in his beginning. Maybe that's why the self-view of self-improvers changed. The society members appropriated to themselves aspirational characteristics that, in their own minds, divided them from the bulk of England's working population. And slowly but surely a separation between the working men and workers were established. Workers were defined by their occupation, while working men were men first, who actively worked to earn a wage, but also occupied their leisure hours with intellectual labors. The occupations of working men might assign them to a specific economic class, but their aspirations brought them together as a caste whose gradual appropriation of improvement, not occupation, was the primary defining feature of their lives. Caste both rose above and replaced class as an organizing principle for those eager young men who believed that membership in the closely guarded club of self-improvers. As long as one demonstrated the three major characteristics of self-culture: intellectual achievement, moral rectitude, and civic responsibility, they were part of the same caste. So guys, give us your thoughts. Make sure to like the video if you did. Subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Guys, like, subscribe, and by the way, if you're looking for the perfect home workout, check out my other videos.